So what do we know about Satan? Well, we know that he was a tester as seen in the following passages. And as you may notice, Genesis 3 is absent from my list, even though it describes a serpent that deceives Adam and Eve. And this omission isn't a statement for or against the serpent as being Satan, but rather my decision to focus on the clearest, most direct references to Satan in the Bible. Because the serpent in the garden is never explicitly identified as Satan himself. The closest connection we have comes from Revelation 12:9 and 22 that identifies Satan as that ancient serpent. However, this alone does not confirm that this is the same serpent spoken about in Genesis 3. The Bible frequently uses serpent and dragon imagery, and it does not always refer to the same entity. Consider Ezekiel 29:3, where the Pharaoh is also symbolized as a great dragon. And some may point to 2 Corinthians 11:3 as evidence that the serpent in Genesis 3 was Satan. But again, this passage does not explicitly identify Satan as the serpent. It simply refers to the deception itself. And it may be a valid interpretation, but there is no definitive biblical proof that this refers to Satan as being the serpent, which is why I chose to leave it off the list. Furthermore, even if that was Satan in the garden, it tells us nothing of his origin. Okay, so if we remove Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28 from Satan's origins, where does that leave us? Well, there is one scripture that tells us something about the origin of Satan, and that's found in John 8:44. You are of your father the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. This scripture actually contradicts the concept that Satan was an angel in heaven named Lucifer, who was created perfect from the beginning, but then fell due to his sin of pride. And unlike Old Testament prophetic passages that use highly symbolic language, here in John 8, there is no ambiguity at all. So in moments like this, where you find scriptures that can seem contradictory, I will side with scripture that is the clearest every time. Jesus tells us here in John that Satan was a murderer from the beginning, and this is the clearest scriptural evidence we have of Satan's origins. So what do we do with all this information? At the end of the day, our belief on the origin of Satan, it neither detracts from or enriches the walk of the believer in any meaningful way. When discussing the hierarchy of doctrinal importance, this topic doesn't even fall under secondary doctrines. I wouldn't even classify it as a tertiary doctrine. This falls somewhere way down the list. And for me, the real concern isn't about Satan's origins, but where a fantastical belief in these origins can lead to. And on the surface, this may not seem like a big deal, but I have heard teachings of people who are obsessed over the devil's backstory, reading Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28 completely out of context, stripping them of their original meaning about earthly kings and using every line as a proof text of this fabricated idea of a pre-adamic world. And in this view, Satan is imagined as a literal ruler over an ancient civilization, engaging in commerce, importing and exporting, a claim completely absent from Scripture. And I'm not about to open that can of worms, but if you're curious, just do a quick Google search of the pre-Adamic world, and you can easily go down that rabbit hole. The Bible isn't meant to answer every question you've ever had. It's not some mystery novel offering clues to answers for all things. It offers very specific answers to very specific questions. The truth is, there are many things that we wish the Bible would address, but it remains silent on. And since we don't like that silence, we end up going clue hunting. And this is where we end up falling into error. We allow our minds to build these fantastical stories because we like a good story. So what does the Bible tell us about Satan? Well, we know that his desires are evil, and from Scripture we know that he is a tester and an accuser. But what does the Bible tell us about Satan's origins? Absolutely nothing. Thanks for watching.